You did it. You solved the hardest problem our species ever set for itself. You built a machine that crosses the black gulf between stars, and at this moment it is moving at 20% of the speed of light. That is roughly 60,000 kilometers every single second, fast enough to fall from the Earth to the Moon in the time it takes to read this sentence, faster than any object human hands have ever set in motion. Ahead of you, swelling brighter every day, is another sun, a real one, the first that anything born on Earth has ever come close to touching. And in a few short hours, you are going to streak straight past it and vanish into the dark on the far side, forever. Because your machine has engines. What it does not have is brakes. This is not a riddle invented for a video. A smaller version of it already happened, and we watched the whole thing unfold live. In 2006, we launched a piano-sized probe called New Horizons toward Pluto. It fell through the solar system for 9.5 years and crossed nearly 5 billion kilometers of empty space. And when it finally reached the world, it had chased for a decade. It did not slow down. It could not. It tore past Pluto in a matter of hours, snatching every photograph and measurement it could in one frantic burst, and then it kept right on going. No orbit, no landing, no second look. A 10-year journey spent on an encounter shorter than a lunch break. New Horizons was a triumph. It was also, if we are honest, a photograph taken from a car window on a motorway. One glance at the thing we crossed the solar system to see, and then back into the night. Which raises a question almost nobody bothers to ask. If simply reaching Pluto ended in a hit and run, what exactly do we imagine happens when we aim at another star? Getting there was never the hard part. Arriving is. And by the end of this, you'll understand why every serious spacecraft we have ever drawn on paper slams into the same wall, a wall built out of physics we still don't know how to climb. Start with something you already believe without ever thinking about it. Things that move eventually stop. Push a chair across the room and let go. It slides, then quits. Kick a ball down the street and it slows, wobbles and settles. Take your foot off the pedal and the road quietly brings your bicycle to rest. This feels like a fundamental law of reality. It isn't. It's a local custom. Everything on this planet slows down because this planet is crowded with things that steal motion. Air shoves back against you. The ground drags at every surface it touches. There is friction in the wheels and resistance in the atmosphere. 1,000 tiny hands pulling the energy out of anything that dares to move. We are so soaked in this that we've mistaken it for the way the universe works. Space never got the memo. Out there, between the stars, almost nothing touches you. No air to push against, no surface to grind you down. And so the oldest rule in physics, the one Newton wrote down more than 3 centuries ago, finally gets to speak without being interrupted. A thing in motion stays in motion. Not for a while, not until it tires, forever. This turns everything you know about travel inside out. On Earth, moving is the hard part, and stopping takes care of itself. In space, moving is free and stopping is the impossible luxury. Cut your engines in deep space, and you do not drift gently to a halt. You simply keep going at exactly the speed you had reached in exactly the direction you were pointed until the end of time or until you smash into something, whichever finds you first. So there is only one way to slow a spacecraft. You have to swing your engines around and fire them against your own motion, spending just as much effort to lose your speed as you spent to build it. Every kilometer per second gained on the way out must be paid back, in full, on the way in. And that single, innocent-sounding fact is where the whole dream of reaching the stars quietly begins to fall apart. Here is the cruel little trap sitting at the center of rocketry. To slow down, you burn fuel. Fuel has mass. The more of it you carry, the heavier your ship becomes. And the heavier your ship becomes, the more fuel you need just to move that extra weight, which is itself more weight, which needs still more fuel to shift it. It's a snake eating its own tail. Engineers call the formula that describes this the rocket equation. And its defining feature is that it does not add up gently, it explodes. Want to go twice as fast? You don't need twice the fuel. You might need 10 times as much or 100. The numbers don't grow, they detonate. Now bolt on the part that makes crossing to another star genuinely brutal. If you want to stop when you arrive, you have to bring the fuel for stopping with you. All of it. From the very first second of the journey. Which means your braking fuel is dead weight you drag across 4 light years, and because it is weight, it demands even more fuel to accelerate in the first place, which demands more fuel to carry that fuel, and around it spirals. The result, once you actually run the sums, is almost comic. An interstellar ship on paper stops looking like a vehicle at all. It looks like a colossal mountain of propellant with a thimble of living space glued to the nose. If that sounds like exaggeration, look at the most powerful machine we have ever flown. The Saturn V rocket that carried people to the moon weighed around 3,000 tons fully loaded, and the overwhelming majority of that, close to 90%, was nothing but fuel. Strip the propellant away, and what remained was a sliver. And remember, all that violence, all that fire and thunder was spent to reach the moon? A 3-day trip, our own back garden. Stretch the same logic to another star, and the arithmetic stops describing anything you could build. The fuel mountain grows taller than any rocket we can imagine, and then, disturbingly often, it grows heavier than small planets. The equation doesn't just get expensive, it stops making physical sense. Here is the scene no film ever shows you. On a voyage to another star, you do not spend the trip traveling. You spend the first half of it accelerating as hard as you dare, and then you spend the entire second half fighting with everything you have not to overshoot the very place you spent your life trying to reach. Somewhere near the midpoint, the ship has to perform a maneuver that sounds like madness. It has to swing itself completely around, a full half-turn, until the engines face forward into the direction of travel, and then fire them at maximum power to push back against its own momentum. Pilots and engineers have a name for this. They call it the flip and burn. Picture what that actually means for the people inside. First comes the silence. The engines that have pressed everyone into their seats for years suddenly stop. Gravity vanishes, pens float, drops of water hang in the air like glass beads. Then the ship begins to rotate, slow and deliberate, and the star you have been sailing toward for half a lifetime slides sideways out of the window, and in its place, tiny and cold, appears the pale dot of the sun you left behind. Then the engines roar back to life, aimed the wrong way, burning not to carry you onward, but to unmake every scrap of speed you spent years building. Now imagine driving home after a long day and being told you must start braking while you are still in the next country. Get the timing even slightly wrong, and you don't overshoot your driveway. You overshoot the planet. You sail past your destination and out the far side into endless night. Tanks empty with no way back. A silent, permanent castaway drifting between the stars until the civilization that built you has been forgotten. There is no retry on this, no mission control leaning in to save you. A message from Earth takes more than 4 years each way, so by the time anyone even sees the problem, it is already ancient history. Whatever the ship decides in those final years, it decides alone, following orders written by people who are very likely long dead. And here is the punchline that should chill any engineer awake at night. The fuel to stop equals the fuel to start. Half your ship from the moment of launch is brakes. If we cannot possibly carry enough fuel to stop, then the only path left is to stop without carrying fuel at all. And remarkably, this isn't fantasy. There are real, peer-reviewed proposals for doing exactly that. None of them are simple, but none of them are forbidden by the laws of physics either. The first is to let the destination star do the braking for you. Stars pour out light, and light, strange as it sounds, carries a gentle push. Unfurl a vast, mirror-thin sail in front of an oncoming star, and the pressure of all those photons streaming against it begins, ever so slightly, to slow you down. Faint at first, then firmer as you draw closer, and the starlight turns fierce. It's the same principle behind the celebrated breakthrough Starshot concept, simply run in reverse. Instead of a laser on Earth shoving the sail outward, the target star shoves it back at you as you arrive. No fuel required, the star pays the bill. It's a beautiful idea. It's also monstrously hard to build. The sail would have to span kilometers yet weigh less than a bedsheet, unfold flawlessly at precisely the right instant, and hold perfect alignment with nobody able to help. A correction sent from home arrives more than 4 years too late. One flaw in the deployment, and it shreds or fails to grip the light or pushes you off course entirely. The second idea leans on magnetism. Stars also blast out a constant gale of charged particles, and a ship trailing a large enough magnetic field can push against that gale the way a sail pushes against wind, bleeding off speed with nothing but an invisible field kilometers wide. The physics has held up since the 1980s. The catch is that nobody can yet build the enormous superconducting coils it would demand, or keep them powered across the decades the braking would take. And the third, most tempting idea, just dip into a planet's atmosphere and let the air slow you down. The way our probes already do at Mars falls apart the instant you check the speed. Skim an atmosphere at 1/10 of light speed, and the gas ahead of you compresses into something as unyielding as stone, hot enough to vaporize any material we know in a heartbeat. Your heat shield doesn't slowly wear away. It detonates. A trick that lands an Apollo capsule gently becomes a rifle firing your spacecraft straight into a wall. So here is where the whole field actually stands, once the poetry is swept aside. Every serious plan for reaching another star sorts into one of two boxes, and there is nothing in between. In the first box is the Flyby, a tiny probe, or a swarm of them, flung to 1/5 of light speed and sent screaming past its target with every instrument switched on, harvesting a few seconds of data before it's gone into the dark for good. This is exactly what Breakthrough Starshot proposes. Gram-sized chips riding sails pushed by a giant array of ground-based lasers, crossing to Proxima Centauri, 4.24 light-years away, around 40 trillion kilometers, in roughly 20 years, then whispering their findings home across 4 more years of radio silence. The total wait is about 1/4 of a century, and the reward is a glance. These probes never slow, never circle, never land. They are cosmic paparazzi, one photo snapped at a full sprint. In the second box is the generation ship, a vessel so swollen with fuel, food, air, and machinery that it stops resembling a spacecraft and starts resembling a small moving country. Something like that could genuinely slow down and stay. But it would weigh millions of tons, take centuries to design and build, and ask the people who board it to accept that they will grow old and die in transit. The ones who finally step out under another sun would be the great-grandchildren of the ones who left. Each box solves one half of the puzzle. The Flyby can go but cannot stop. The generation ship can stop but takes lifetimes to go. Nobody has ever drawn a mission that does both at once, because doing both means beating the brake problem. And the brake problem so far beats everyone. That's the quiet truth sitting underneath all our dreams of the stars. Pluto taught us how savage mere distance can be. Proxima Centauri is waiting to teach us something harder. Whether arriving somewhere new is a thing our species can actually do, or only a thing we can rush past on our way to nowhere. So, which future would you choose? The fast probe that snaps one picture and runs forever, or the slow arc that finally lets someone stay? Tell me down in the comments, because the day we learn how to stop is the day the stars stop being scenery and finally become destinations.